I got to talk about Big Trouble in Little China a while back when we did a dead last episode on John Carpenter movies, but it wasn't nearly enough. But sadly, the only place that it really fits is failure to launch. And I want you to understand that there absolutely were attempts to sequelize this film, so there absolutely are reasons to include it here. But I want you to know that the reason why I'm covering it here is because I just needed a reason to discuss this, one of the greatest films of all time. So you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if I'm not done by dawn, call the president. The pillars of heaven began to shake in June of 1986, which begins with a Deep Throat cameo. And in case you're curious, my translator app says that these symbols translate to "Demons make trouble in small China." We meet Jack Burton, truck driver, who's paid his dues, and he's in San Francisco. And we then meet the film's actual main character, Wang. And here's a fun tidbit. The original version of the screenplay, in its original form, was a Western set in the late 1800s. Jack was actually a cowboy, but the studio decided instead to set the film in modern times and ordered a major rewrite. When Wang's girlfriend is kidnapped by a street gang, which leads them straight into the middle of a Chinatown gang war, which is then interrupted by the three storms: thunder, rain, and lightning. They come equipped with cool swords, spinning death blades, and back scratchers, and are joined by Lo Pan, spirit villain. They then team up with Eddie and Gracie Law, who is such a Samantha, and they try to rescue Mao Yin, but she ends up with the storms. They track their hideout to this unassuming warehouse and infiltrate it, and they meet Lo Pan's physical form, a withered old man who intends to use Mao to end his curse because she has green eyes. And the boys escape, and I love that Eddie says the first time you ever plug somebody. Is he insinuating that he has? What is Eddie's backstory? How many people has he plugged?
First time you ever plugged somebody?
They rescue everyone except the one person that they went in there for in the first place, and Gracie gets snagged up as well. So the boys enlist tour bus driver Egg Shen and the Chang Sing to form a small army to go in and save the day. Lo is having a ceremony to marry both of the women, and they encounter what appears to be the cover of a Dungeons & Dragons creature guide. And it kicks off a huge final battle as everyone kicks all kinds of ass. Pan completes the ceremony, becoming flesh, and Wang shows off some impressive acrobatic skills. He manages to kill Rain, leading up to a one-on-one between Jack and Lo, and ending with what is literally one of my favorite moments in all of film.
Goodbye, Mr. Burton.
It's like the one heroic thing that Jack does in the whole movie. Thunder is so despondent about the death of his boss that he just kills himself, and Egg takes out Lightning, and they get the Pork Chop Express back and celebrate with Egg heading out on his own and Jack leaving Gracie hanging. It's left with one of the underground creatures still on Jack's truck, which is a pretty thin cliffhanger, but does seemingly set things up a bit for a sequel. But Carpenter notoriously had no interest in sequels, so it's pretty clear that he wasn't using that as a setup. But what about any follow-ups from someone else? After all, it's not like JC wanted to make a sequel to Halloween, and there's like 30 of those, so why haven't there been any follow-ups? Well, for starters, nothing puts the kibosh on sequel plans like flopping. At this point in his career, Carpenter was on shaky ground. The Thing was a disappointment at the box office, but he followed that up with Christine, which did quite well. And right after that was Starman, which did merely okay. Even still, he was given a pretty solid budget to work with, and the film cost around $20 million to make. In comparison, Aliens, which came out very soon after, cost $18 million, so that should give an idea of the hopes that the studios had for this one. But when they saw the finished product, they got nervous. One thing to understand about the 80s is that the male heroes were larger than life, like super macho, super capable, and pretty much infallible. This was the era of Arnold and Sly, after all. Having a goofball like Burton as your lead was seen as a risk, and Fox was very nervous about that fact. They went back and shot the beginning with Egg at the lawyer's office specifically to hero Jack up, and they proceeded to build their entire marketing push around him. The trailers shouted,
"Jack Burton's coming to rescue your summer."
And their print ads all screamed, "Who is Jack Burton?" So when it hit the theaters, audiences were not aware that they were missing an amazing hysterical action comedy that mixed about a dozen genres with ease. Throw in a terrible couple of reviews from Siskel and Ebert that I think both wildly missed the point, and toss in the fact that it was released in a crowded 4th of July weekend. It was one of 5 studio productions releasing that weekend, including Psycho 3, which outperformed it by $500,000. But it was also sharing ticket sales with such heavy hitters as Top Gun, Ferris Bueller, The Karate Kid 2, and Back to School. There was no shortage of movies to go see, and remember when I mentioned Aliens earlier? Well, that came out 2 weeks later, so genre fans were pretty much holding out for that one, and that left Jack Burton holding the bag with a tiny $2.7 million opening weekend. It would go on to pull in $11 million in total during its run, which was less than half of its cost. That right there was enough to kill any talks of a sequel, even if Carpenter wasn't really having them to begin with. Here's the thing though, they still tried. Back in 1995, Chip Prosser, writer of Inner Space, was hired by Fox to come up with a sequel that they had intended to do for a TV movie. He did 2 drafts of it, and on a podcast stated that he was trying to make it a less racist version and address the fact that Burton is a white hero audience avatar, which kind of makes me wonder if he watched the same movie I did? Especially because his version still featured a white guy at the center, and it was a new character named Steve Taylor, because his drafts apparently didn't feature Jack Burton or really any of the film characters, so it just would have been like a spiritual or thematic sequel. Prosser even went on to say that he didn't even really like the original film, although his problems seemed to lie in the number of close-ups that the movie had, and then complaining about the special effects. In his script, Taylor and his dad were curators at a Chinese museum and would have to go on a quest to find an ancient puzzle and enter a realm of demons. And at what point in this portion of the video did you become relieved to be living in the reality in which this film didn't get made? After that didn't happen, nothing happened with the franchise except its reputation growing and expanding as the film became more and more revered in the home market. The cult success of the film would cement its notoriety, even if it broke its director. Carpenter claimed that Big Trouble was the reason he stopped making studio pictures, and that the handling and reception of it were things that he was unable to deal with, although he would continue to make films for studios afterwards. But then, much later, in 2015, it was announced that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was in talks to step into the role of Jack Burton in a remake written by X-Men First Class scribes Ashley Miller and Zach Stentz. Although Johnson said that he wanted Carpenter involved in one way or another, the director himself stated afterwards that he had not been contacted in any way about the film, but that he was 100% on board with him making a remake as long as they paid him. There was no motion on the project for a couple of years, but in 2018, The Rock was still working on getting it made, and his production team then backtracked on a couple of statements. First off, it was revealed that Johnson would not be playing Jack Burton, and that he would never try to step into that role. And contrary to the earlier reports that it would be a remake, instead said that it would continue the story, implying that it would be a sort of sequel set in the same world, so I guess it would qualify as one of those requels. that everyone keeps on talking about, similar to The Rock's Jumanji thing. At this point, though, JC wasn't as optimistic, saying that the company simply wants a movie with Dwayne Johnson and don't really care about him or his movie. Later still, when Kurt Russell was asked if he would have any involvement in the project, he stated that he probably wouldn't and wished them well with the movie. At this point, it would appear that the remake, sequel, requel, whatever, is mostly dead, with no news of it coming for a while, and the last that Johnson mentioned it was in the middle of 2021, stating that he still wants to do it, but that there was now some legal blocks in the way, delaying things, so at this point, who knows if we'll see it made, or if we want to see it made, and at this point, never can tell. So there you have it, it's just one movie, and probably will only ever be one movie, and thankfully will only ever be one movie, because it's one of the best movies I've ever seen. I can't tell you how much I love this movie. It is so much fun. It is everything that I want in a movie. It is adventure, excitement, it's funny, it's got great characters. I love everything about it, and I could watch it at any moment. If you put that movie on right now, I would just stop doing what I was doing, and I would watch it. If you haven't seen it, you should stop everything and watch it as well, because I think you would enjoy it. It's a great flick. If you don't enjoy it, that's all good too, but I might trust you a little bit less. So there you have it. If you enjoyed that, if you enjoy this movie, let me know down below. If you would like to see some sort of sequel to it, let me know. If you prefer it stays exactly the way it is, just one movie, and no one ever touch it again, or else we'll burn them in the face, put that in the comments, sure. And of course, hit that like button. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more from the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you want notifications of when there's new videos, apparently you've got to click that little bell thing too, otherwise you just don't get that stuff. And of course, if you want to help support the channel, go to my Patreon at patreon.com/movietimelines. These guys do. They're awesome for doing it, and you can be awesome by doing it as well, just helping to support things. But you are also supporting things by just watching this video. Maybe share it. Maybe like share it out to friends or something like that, or just, have a party and have people come over your house to watch movie time. Whatever. I don't care. In the meantime, I'll see you very shortly for another great video. Bye-bye, guys. Thanks.